what more needs to be done to steer nations back on track to meet this critical goal before it gets out of hand? It's good to have you join us again on our continued COP29 series on Green Growth TV. As we approach the final days of COP29, tensions are high, and crucial discussions and decisions have already been made, like the launch of the Loss and Damage Fund, to initiatives targeting methane reduction, energy storage, and many more. And today, we want to reflect on the progress so far and explore what more to expect with just a few days to go. Joining in live from Baku at the COP29 conference, I have with me Dr. Caroline Okowa, Deputy Director, Center for Training and Integrated Research in ASAL Development. Thank you so much for joining, Caroline. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah. How has the conference been so far?
Different. I can say different.
Oh,
because
really?
the first week came to an end, and then we started the second week. Yeah.
Okay, all right, great. So let's just get straight into the conversation. We have just 2 more days to go till the end of the COP29 summit. So with just 2 more days to go, looking at that, there's been some inconclusions on certain agreements and all of that. Do you fear that this summit might conclude without a deal? Because, for instance, the 9-page draft agreements that was calling for the $1.3 trillion per year to the developing nations has now grown to 25 pages, with countries continuously adding new fine prints and options for consideration. So far, looking at the progress, has the development in this agreements been slow? And do you fear that the COP29 might conclude without being able to reach a finalized decision and finalized agreements on each of these drafts that are being made so far?
I must say that is a very good question, but let's base it on the negotiation process. You know, the UNFCCC negotiations are structured. We have the technical part, which is done during the first week. We have the political part with the ministers in the second week. And only when there's no decision, this is moved to the COP presidency. And if the COP presidency cannot make it, then either you, like what happened in Glasgow, you have, let's call it diluted decision. However, all is not lost. We know negotiations is about interest, there's a lot of power play, and there are some underlying issues. This issue of finance is very delicate. And remember, even the figure which we are now moving from, which was 100 billion, was not based on anything. The 1.3 trillion is based on the NDCs which have been posted. However, getting a straight answer is not very easy. It's a wait and see situation. And, we need to just bring in the issue of humanity and whether fairness and a binding decision will be found. But now 2 days to go. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So also now let's look at it. COP29 has been dreadlocked on one very major question. Of course, we agree that the world's poorest and most climate vulnerable countries does need the trillions of dollars in order to transition to clean energy and to cope with, this climate-fueled disasters. But now the question of defining which countries are rich and which countries should actually take responsibility for this financing seems to have been stalling the finance negotiations. So how do you think we can define fairness in sharing responsibility for the climate costs? What countries need to step up to, meet these demands and to ensure that we are able to conclude on this issue in terms of financing for these vulnerable communities that are suffering from climate disasters?
As we know, there are a number of factors which are considered when you're defining fairness, and especially in this UNFCCC process. We know about the historical responsibilities for the greatest emitters, And we also know that there are groupings like Annex 1 and non-Annex 1 countries. These are things which were done a long time ago based on something. And for this answer, I really like looking back at the principles, the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, the principle of transparency, the principle of accountability, inclusiveness, actually the 8 tenets of governance. So when we want to define which nations under this process, we really must fall back on that. So again, I cannot just give you a straight answer that you should consider A, B, and C. However, we need to look back. How were these countries segregated? Why were they segregated? How can we do it now? What do we want to do to bring a new definition? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So looking at, I mean, a couple of initiatives have been made within this few weeks. For instance, there's the energy initiative that was also made in Baku. There is the collective, that is the collective target. They came up with a collective target to deliver a six-fold increase in global energy storage capacity. So how would this proposed six-fold increase in global energy storage capacity be able to transform the global energy system? What are we looking at from this particular initiative? What can we expect to happen differently in this particular energy storage sector?
As a researcher, I'm going to look at it using the research lens because we know initiatives have been brought, but if we cannot get the perspective from the developing countries, uh, then what does it mean? Because we are more, the developing countries, we are more. And just to directly answer your question, we find that if we use the example of the batteries in UAE, then it is expected that the six-fold increase in global energy storage will lead to reduction in costs and also a reduction in the use of non-renewable materials and bring in issues like moving from lithium batteries to sodium ion batteries. And these funds are attributed to falling costs, supportive and industrial policies in nations like the UAE. And also we know the issue of the EV vehicles which need batteries. So when you look at the six-fold global energy storage, it is being touted that in the long run, it will revolutionize the energy system, reduce the cost, and lead to the 1.5 ambition. But I must say that as a scientist, we really need conclusive, reliable data from across the globe. And it's only when we have this, like a representative baseline, that I can confidently respond and say, it means this for us. And this should be able to be monitored and evaluated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, still looking at the commitments made just yesterday, that was on Monday rather, we had over 30 states committing to reducing methane from organic waste declaration, and this actually represents nearly half of the global methane emissions from organic waste. So how would this initiative drive meaningful change to ramp up efforts in order to manage waste and integrate a more circular economy solutions in terms of waste management practices? What more should we expect from this commitment as well from the different nations that pledged this at the COP29 conference?
For the methane gas, we have different greenhouse gases, but for the methane gas, which is the one we are discussing now, I would like to first state that from the developing countries, the system we use, because we are particularly very reliant on agriculture and especially livestock keeping, our methods, science shows that the methane that we release is not so much because we are using efficient methods. So that data shows that we are not bringing so much problem. But for the countries which pledge they are going to reduce it, I will look at it using the circular economy model, whereby a waste becomes a source for another company. But coming from a developing country. The issue of methane, which translates into livestock rearing issue, is very dicey and touchy. There's data, and I can share more about some of the works we have done, for example, in Kenya, to show that the system we are using of free grazing and pastoralism is not a big issue. Thank you.
We'll take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll look more into this conversation. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Green Growth TV's COP29 series. So now we want to turn our focus to the agricultural sector because a few days ago as well, the COP29 presidency in partnership with the FAO officially launched the Baku Harmonia Climate Initiative for farmers. And because, I mean, when you think about it, farmers are at the heart of climate resilience, but they still face significant challenges. So how would an initiative like this make a real difference in the agricultural sector and in the lives of these farmers based on this initiative that was just launched? What does this mean for the farmers and the agricultural sector?
This is a very attractive initiative, and I say attractive for the youth farmers and the farmers who are tech savvy. But from the developing country perspective, just a simple question: how many farmers have Android phones? Okay, and how many farmers can interact with aggregated information? So I'll use the example of Kenya, where I come from. We have some initiatives by the government which are using technology, similar to the initiative from Baku. But what has happened is that we have had to have extension services. In what does this mean? When you have tech savvy approaches, then you need agricultural officers to come, get the farmers together, assist them, explain what the initiative is about, explain what you require from them. So this is a barrier because you have this tech initiative, but the farmers, the small scale farmers who form, like in my country, they are over 60%. And this is in most African countries that the small scale farmers are the ones driving the agriculture. So as a researcher, I must say that it would be helpful that such an initiative, much as it is a one-stop shop for agri-food systems, there's need for tailor making it and considering country special circumstances so that it is working for the farmers and they're able to give feedback, they're able to do face-to-face, and they're able to make such an initiative be impactful for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So there were also discussions as well. Let's look at gender now. There were also discussions on the role of gender equality in combating climate change. So exploring how to expand women's contribution to climate resilience and environmental protection as well. So how can amplifying women-led initiatives transform our approach to building climate resilience, and what has been the progress in COP29 presently with women-led initiatives? How much role or how big of a role have women played in the decisions that are being made over there at the ongoing COP29 conference?
I almost feel like you look at the photograph which you're showing the president and you could only see one or two women, but that is beside the I want to answer this question by looking at the strength of a woman. You know, women have the ability to collaborate, to
Mm,
engage at grassroots level, to set up innovative measures. And they have this very huge social capital strength, which is a plus for any initiative. And so when you empower women economically, then the initiatives have a ripple effect. And you find that in COP29, where we have some of the women leading some of the, thematic areas or even co-leading with the men, there's that supportive role of both the genders. And this is what works actually. But the strength of a woman in that social capital aspect, when you empower them, then for sure the impact is going to be bigger. That's what I
mm-hmm.
would say. Thank you.
Okay, so there've also been warnings that we're in a final countdown to keep the temperature rise within the 1.5 degrees Celsius. So what has been done? What major thing has been done at COP29, or what more needs to be done? Even though, I mean, we don't have all the time, but what more needs to be done to steer nations back on track to meet this critical goal before it gets out of hand?
We must appreciate that the science, data doesn't lie. The science is saying that we are not doing well. And
Mm-hmm.
so we need to do something differently. When I'm speaking with our delegation, I normally tell them we need to disrupt the system because it
Mm,
cannot be business as usual anymore.
yeah.
But this COP being counted as a finance COP, uh, there needs to be a decision which will change, which will transform, which will motivate. That's what needs to be done.
All right. So finally, what would a successful COP29 look to you? I mean, it's wrapping up already. We're at the closing stage, but there's still a lot to be done. So I just want to get your thoughts. What more do you still expect to see at this ongoing conference? What would a successful COP29 be to you?
This is a difficult question. But, having been involved for quite some time in this process, for me, success is about bridging the gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Mm,
The COP process is technical, it's systematic, it takes a very long time
yeah.
to get things moving. But for the vulnerable communities back at home, they need action like yesterday. Everybody is experiencing the climate change vagaries. And so for me, success means impactful action with
Mm.
clear means of implementation. That is finance, technology, and capacity building, which is what is the means of implementation in this process. But a successful COP is one which can give a decision which will lead to impactful change for the local communities back at home. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for joining us all the way from Baku. As COP29 draws to a close, the decisions and the discussions so far have laid a critical foundation for global climate action. However, the true measure of success would definitely be in how these commitments are implemented after the conference and whether they would actually be able to address the urgent needs of vulnerable nations. So the question now is, will COP29 conclude with progress or frustration? Well, we'll stick around to find out. Till next time, I remain your host, Tony Ogubanjo. It's bye for now.